Happy Sunday night and welcome to the Park Adventurers Club. This is our third official meeting, so we're glad you found us and we hope you hang out with us. And of course, to all who celebrate, happy May the 4th, and May the 4th be with you. Tonight we're going to be talking about some interesting things, especially our main topic, which is going to be about Star Wars in the Disney parks. So hold on to that. If you guys have not already, please subscribe to this channel. This is our new channel, our new adventure. It's the Park Adventurers Club. Please give us a subscribe and also give this video a like, as it helps people to find us, and tell your friends and your family and get your dogs set up on YouTube and make sure everybody is watching the Park Adventurers Club. We would love to have you. Tonight's meeting consists of these members of the pack, or the Park Adventurers Club, starting with Stephanie.
Bright suns, everyone. Ignite the spark, Rob.
You are getting in on this early, aren't you? And then for the first time at a pack meeting, it's Mr. Rob Bazemore. How are you, sir?
I'm outstanding. Excited to be here with you guys.
Well, thanks for not being outstanding in the hallway, being here with us, being present. We appreciate you. I was going for a joke there. Couldn't get there. Yeah. It's not funny. Yeah. It's not funny.
Did you get that one from what's that bar in the Polynesians, Trader Sam's?
Yes, that's what it is. It's just bad jokes. For those of you, this is your first meeting, like it is Mr. Rob B. We follow meeting rules. This is Rob's Rules of Order. This is how we run these meetings. And again, I have a gavel, or at least we're pretending like it's one. This is not a hammer. It's officially a gavel. My wife keeps telling me, no, that is not. But anyway, there we have it. We start with, of course, an agenda. You need to know what we're getting into. We're going to have, this is our agenda for May the 4th, 2025. We're going to have the reading of the minutes. We're going to talk about a couple things that happened in Disney parks and, well, theme park news in the past week, including the announcement of Cool Kids Summer, the Disneyland 70th food reveals, the Epic preview, open to all guests, not just pass holders. Geo82 is open for preview. They gave us some previews, but it's open for reservations starting on May the 6th. And, of course, we'll talk about the May the 4th celebrations and finish with the back half in our new business, Star Wars in the Disney parks. Did they hit the mark, or did they drop the ball? And then at the end, we'll tell you about our club, other programming we have, and how you can help the channel if you so choose. So let's get into this new business first. The Cool Kids Summer. We're cool kids, right? I feel like that's we're pretty hip and cool. We talked about last week, Stephanie, when they dropped the Kids Eat Free program. We talked about the fact that, like, Universal probably has got the teens and above in their pockets right now with all of the IPs they have and the roller coasters and that kind of stuff. And we talked about, does Disney are they starting to get away from the dinks, the double income, no kids, and the Disney adults, and sort of try to get back to where they started, which was families and kids. And this Cool Kids Summer looks exactly like an extension of that, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I think that, at EPCOT, they have the KidCot stations, and my kids love that because when you're going to listen and learn about different cultures, they pay attention for maybe, 5 or 10 minutes, and then they're interested and they want to get their hands dirty and into something. So that's what they like to do. They like to collect stamps. They like to go around and do the KidCot. I think this is very reminiscent of that. I think they kind of take what they know works and they're moving it into different parks. The other thing that they know works are these dance parties. I think that you see a lot of that whenever you purchase a after hours event ticket, and people love them. Adults love them too, but kids definitely like to get their groove on. So I think they're trying to bring in something that they know works.
Point of order. I have a question about the dance parties myself, because I feel like there's too many of them, and I see a dance party, I'm like, good, go to the dance party. I'll be at Space Mountain. Right. Even with my kids, it's like if I were to have taken them, and maybe I just raised them wrong, but if I were to have taken them, I don't know that they would have been into that. But you bring up a great point. Before we go to Rob B, I want to kind of show what the Disney Parks blog has rolled out here. This is the Cool Kids Summer. And they have events at all of the parks and all of this cool stuff. Now, one of the things I found interesting was they're closing our beloved Communicore Hall to make it Goofy Core at Communicore Hall. Oh, Lord, please don't mess that up. And so that's going to happen. They're closing it early, and then there's like new activities, and they all feel just like you were talking about, like KidCot, like the new Explorers badge and a sing-along, and And then they're obviously kind of also promoting the opening of the Disney Villain show and then the Little Mermaid show. But man, it's meet and greets and it's DJ dance parties and it's all that stuff. And I'm all for more. I'm all for more stuff and new stuff. But Rob, talk to me. How does this hit with you?
Yeah, there's a couple things here. First of all, I'm super excited. I don't think there's any risk that they're going to mess up Communicore Hall any worse than it is. So I think
Exactly.
Okay. I think two things are happening. I think from a business standpoint, they're smart in that they realize, at least for the near term, that Epic Universe kind of owns this teen space, right? And they're probably making a pretty good dent into those groups in the 20s. But what Disney really has the opportunity is to solidify the young kids to really bring in additional level of loyalty that hopefully will scale as they're getting into their teens and adulthood in the future. So I think from a purely business strategy standpoint, this is super smart. Now, in terms of Dink, I think you'll find a lot of old people like me who typically have some disposable income. I think there's a big loyalty base still to Disney, so I don't think they're quite as worried about losing us. That's why you're not seeing any heavy discounting around adults. It's more about, hey, how do you build new experiences and memories with young kids that will lead us into the future. So super smart. And I think it's also indicative of the fact that they probably are seeing lower than expected attendance rates, right? So they're trying to drive some new activities, drive some new marketing awareness campaigns around all of this to do anything they can to drive attendance. And I think that's indicative of some substantial discounts they're offering around hotels and tickets and a number of things. It's Disney having to go back to the basics to draw people back in.
Yeah, you know what I find so funny about that is that I feel like starting with Eisner and moving on to Stags and et cetera, that they were trying to change the image of Disney as it's not the kids and princesses parks, it's everyone's park. And so they bought Marvel and they bought Star Wars, which obviously we're going to talk about. And they bought all these properties and they changed, they were going to have the new Fantasyland was going to be like all these princess meet and greets and different houses. And then it ended up being, well, let's throw the Seven Dwarves, not the Snow White, but the Seven Dwarves roller coaster in there and try to make it sort of, again, for everybody. Annual pass prices, it's been just crazy to me that like there's not kids annual passes, it's just like everybody annual passes. So yeah, they're finally kind of going back to their bread and butter, the thing that got them started, and saying, hey, yeah, bring your families. And to your point, Rob, great point, like start training them up. Get these kids having these experiences and loving the Disney parks the way that our parents did, and that then you're seeding like the trees for the future generations.
Rob, one quick point on this. I think of a company, we think about Apple computers. One of the things they did early on when they released the first Apple computers is they went to the state of California and they gave every single school an Apple computer. And the idea was to get kids using these computers so that as they grow up and they become adults and they start making decisions on what platforms people use, they're used to using these Apple computers. So it really is hitting them as early on, and then that they become the decision makers later on in life. I think it's exactly what Disney's doing here.
Yep. All right. Moving on to other old business, the Disneyland foods for the 70th anniversary have been released. And again, this entire anniversary confounds me because on May 16th, the 70th anniversary starts with most things, but not everything. And then it's not really the anniversary until July, July 17th. And then and there are going to be a couple other things there. It's just so weird because like when the 50th happened for Walt Disney World, it happened on October 1st. Their anniversaries don't seem to make as much sense to me, but maybe it's just, again, it's a different skew of locals in the park and everything. But they did drop some of the stuff that they're doing for these boxes for the dessert parties, which I find interesting, versus the dessert party in Florida is, hey, eat everything you want. The dessert party in California is, here's a box. And then some of this food looks absolutely amazing, but of course, let's get to the bottom and the things that really matter at the bottom of this list, and it is plastics. Boom. This one didn't excite me. I was like, it's a balloon. It's whatever. What? That is adorable. That is like a Funko-y version, bobbleheady Mickey Mouse. Yes, please. And then they were like, oh, Harold, hold my sipper. Harold the Sipper, here he comes. And then, they've got some other plastic. And then I actually was impressed with this glow cube here, too. That one was kind of cute. So there's a lot of things going on. Rob, did you, again, you're more likely being on the left coast, the West Coast, to be going to this stuff. Are you more, is there something here you were excited about? Did you start, like, charting out your food plans? Or are you like, it's just another celebration?
I am definitely going. I'm super excited. Honestly, I'm trying to wait to the Walt robot is ready before or animatronic is ready before I go, and I'm still not 100% sure that that they have a definitive date for that. So as soon as it's live, I'll head over there. I liked a lot of stuff. A few things jumped out to me. Some of the offerings, Blue Bayou, which is my favorite restaurant at Disney, the ribeye and prawns. That's something I definitely want to give it a shot. The chocolate chip mousse. And then also on the refreshment corner, that pulled pork mac and cheese looked pretty incredible. But overall, it all looks really good. And I will tell you that from a festival standpoint, lack of cool, creative food is something that I've complained about often for Disneyland. And I think they pulled out all the stops here.
Okay. Stephanie?
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I feel like they've done a really good job to promote this. And I will say this about the box, though, Rob. I like the World of Color dessert party. You get great seats. It was not available whenever we went out there this past September, and I was so devastated. But they usually have a little bit of some dessert, and then they have like a little fruit and they have a little cheese. So this is a lot of dessert. This is more reminiscent, I guess, of the East Coast in that little box presentation. But I think that I agree with what Rob said. It all looks great, and Disneyland does a great job. And I will say this too about the popcorn bucket. Yes, the Mickey is adorable. Everyone's got to get a Mickey, and good luck getting the glow cube if you're not there on day one, okay? Because those things go fast. But I will say this about the balloon. I love the color. I don't remember them doing that kind of a lighter blue color before. And I think it's really pretty. I think it's going to go far. So anyway, I like it.
Well, I mean, and again, my problem is more that it's so similar to all of the other things I have. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at my Magic Key Disneyland popcorn bucket that is the same shape, but it's metallic.
Right.
And I mean, it's classic. That's great. I just don't need like 900 of the balloon ones. And again, for the 50th anniversary of Disney World, you and I talked about it. There were lines for like, we got to line up for the gold one here and the mauve one over here. And the chartreuse one is like down there. And it's like, no, but when they do the things like the Harold Sipper, I'm just like, I'm beyond excited about that one. So I have I've had conversations with one of my contacts, and that's on the list of things that definitely going to need to have. But you know what? You're right, though, about the dessert party thing, because the funny thing about timing wise, if you guys have ever done a dessert party, and obviously there are some places where I feel like if you can afford it, do it. Happily is definitely one of those, because with Happily, it's one of those where you're like, you want a really good view to be able to see the stuff on the castle, but you don't want your child trampled. So therefore, you're like, let's do a dessert party. And my recommendation is you do the one that is after. So they do one that's before the fireworks and one that's after. Because if you go to the fireworks and then go to the one after, you've got more distance between dinner and this dessert party. But you also let everybody else clear out of the park while you guys are kind of having a snack, and then you can either ride some rides or peace out after the manias happen. But the timing of it is so weird sometimes, because you're like, I literally just ate dinner and now I've already committed to this expensive dessert party that I'm going to have to eat all of it, or else I don't get my money's worth out of it. But to your point about California, they did, I was relieved that it wasn't all sugar, and I love sugar. And I was like, wait, crackers? I will have a cracker and some cheese. Yes. But it's portioned out, which is actually probably for my own good. But
yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
So let's move on to something that could be controversial and maybe wasn't controversial, but the internet blew up about it anyway, which is this. The Epic Universe preview, which was just supposed to be, we were understanding, for pass holders, is now open to anyone that has dollar bills. So if you have money, come to the park before it's open. And there's so many thoughts I have on this, but the stuff that I've heard and talked about, or heard talked about on this, was people who were pass holders bought this thinking that they were going to have like a smaller crowd and therefore and a benefit. Like, hey, I'm a pass holder, you're giving me a benefit here, and I'm going to have a smaller crowd in the park. And now you're opening it up to everybody. So whereas I thought I was going to have, a 30-minute wait for monsters, now I'm going to have a 100-minute wait for monsters because you've let in everyone. That was one thought. The second thought that I heard was that Epic is doing this for the use of testing the capacity of the park. They want to test everything. So the more people they can put in there, the more realistic it's going to be for a regular day. So they're testing the stress of counter service and everything else. That's Rob's laughing already. So that's another thing. So I cannot wait to hear, Rob, what you think about that. But here's my thing about it, and then I'll pass it on to Rob, and then Stephanie will go to you on this, is that for this one, for Epic Universe, I look at this and go, there were people who bought tickets that were the 3-day tickets before the 1-days were allowed. And so you had to buy this huge package to be able to guarantee your family was going to be able to go to Epic Universe. And it was like, you get 3 days. One of them is Epic Universe. The other 2, we don't care where you go. And then just, you can't come here. And that was the first thing. And then when it opened up, it was, okay, pass holders can buy one, but only a pass holder can buy one, a 1-day. And so for me, I'm a pass holder, but my family isn't. And it would be great, for me to just walk in by myself and just wave at them and they have to stay outside. No, that's not something I'm going to do. Then they opened it up to everyone to buy tickets for whenever you want. Then the preview stuff was just for pass holders. So they were encouraging people to buy passes. Like, buy a pass, and then we can let you in early. And then it's like, psych. I don't know. Rob, you were laughing. I want to go to you first, and then we'll go to Stephanie on this one. What are your thoughts on this? Is it a problem?
I love your optimistic point of view. They're stress testing, and they're trying to create the best experience for the end customer. But the reality is, it's about money, right? And here's the other piece. There's 2 things happening. If they had outstripped demand, or what they forecasted for demand, they would have kept it highly constrained, right? Or they could have gotten away with just having pass holders or just Helios guests. They would have kept things continuously constrained. But the fact that they haven't means that the forecasts they had for those other high affinity groups are below expectations, and they're just opening this up to as many people as they can to try to fill that demand that they had forecasted for. It's one and only. It's the only viable explanation here. They could pulse if they want to do a pulse if they wanted to just test stress loads. There's lots of other ways they could do that, but this is purely sales aren't meeting expectations, so they're trying to bring in as many people as they can. I mean, again, there's no other logic.
Well, what you have to understand is if someone is selling Kool-Aid, I'm going to be drinking it, Rob, all the time.
Yeah. They think some plastic.
Yeah,
it's a plastic. That's right.
Yep. Especially put it in a sipper. I am there, man. I will just shill. Stephanie, talk.
I completely agree with Rob. So here's the thing: they've done a great job, I feel like, with the previews for independent media and all the YouTubers and everything like that. But if you're not watching them, if you are just a regular normie person and you're not always like Disney nerd, like fiend, like we are, you're not going to know about it. I know this for a fact. For one of my friends, she texted me and she said, "Hey, my kids and I are getting off of the ship in Canaveral, and we're going to go for a day at at Universal, and then we're going to go for a day at Disney. And so where should we stay and everything? I said, well, you should go for Epic. And she goes, it's not open yet till the 22nd. We're going the 19th. I'm like, girl, they've got a preview ticket and it's totally open and you should go buy them right now. And she was like, what? She had no idea. And she's not, listening to the blog. She's not watching, YouTube and everything. So that's the problem. And so, yes, I think that this is exactly a money grab. Absolutely. But she's going to enjoy her day and I'm going to be very jealous. So I hope she has a fun time.
I love that there was a world where Stephanie goes, girl, listen, like,
yes.
Girl, let me tell you. Yes, I can't, girl. I'm sorry. I'm stuck now. I'm stuck in thinking about that. That's awesome. I love that. I love that journey for you. All right, moving on to other minutes that we have here. I've been a little bit rammy about the fact that Disney's offerings in response, and it's not in response to, but Disney's offerings in the short-term future are bars and shows, whereas there's a whole park going on, but they've got bars and shows and last chance to see things. That's the other benefit of Disney. You can have your last chance to see the Muppets, and then we're going to send you to another show to let you know that, to distract you, and then you can go to the bar to cry. I don't know how it all works out, but I'm actually a little bit excited about this one. So this Geo 82 that's opening up, it's May the 4th when we are recording this, or we're doing this live. May the 6th, you can go and you can start booking not only your reservations but also your fireworks parties. You got to get. They're calling it a fireworks experience. I love this verbiage. Whatever AI generated this. For a perfect conclusion to your day, reserve the Geo 82 fireworks experience as part of the Enchanting Extras collection for new views of Luminous, the Symphony of Us, from tables along the lounge's windows. So here's the thing too. I've talked about this before because we were talking about glow cubes earlier. I'm not that strong a drinker, but I have become a fan of an old fashioned, and these old fashions that they have here that are the brown butter old fashions. Like, I don't know. I'm excited about that. And look at this, the ice cube with the geodesic sphere in it. Oh man. Like I'm excited about this. Stephanie, should I not be excited about this bar?
No, I think you should be.
Sorry, lounge.
The lounge. You get it right. No, I think you should be, especially if you don't have little children. Because, we're going to have a cool kid summer. Bring the kiddos. Leave them outside because you can't bring them into here. So pay your $200 and let's see the fireworks that nobody's staying around to watch outside the window. But other than that, I really do hope it's good. I really do hope it's good.
Girl. All right,
Girl.
Rob.
So the kids can hang out with Goofy while we're all in here.
Goofy, the babysitter.
But you know what? We can sit here and make fun of this all day long, but who here will not be watching fireworks here in this lounge? I mean, I know I will be.
Yeah.
It's so iconic to be, right outside of Spaceship Earth, not really Spaceship Earth, but Spaceship Earth approximately close. Adjacent. Be able to have a cocktail and watch the fireworks. I mean, that's something that people have been wanting for years. I'm really hoping one day that they'll actually build a bar inside Spaceship Earth. But I guess that's probably a little further away. But you're right, Rob.
Right.
Adding bars and experiences are things that Disney can do very quickly, and they can't build a new park or a new attraction within years. So they're just, because they're so far behind, they're looking for ways to very quickly add new revenue streams. And again, let's be transparent here. That's what this is. This is a revenue stream. They had a lounge space that was sitting there empty that wasn't generating any sales per square foot, and now they're building this in there, and it's something that people are really going to like. And it's going to generate a boatload of revenue for them.
Yep.
Are we excited about this food?
It's
it looks good.
Yeah,
Elevated.
It's definitely elevated. It's definitely upscale food, but the point you made, Stephanie, is like fireworks viewing, no children allowed. because it's a 21 and older thing. So you can't, like, you and your husband can go, but the kids can, like, all right, stand down below by the Walt statue so we can see you,
I can see you.
but
Yes.
we'll be up here.
Yeah,
Having the jumbo lump crab gâteau. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. You're right, Rob. You said the same thing about Island Tower, man. You were like, hey, you know what? We're all here making fun of it. Great. Y'all make fun of it. I'm making my reservations day one. It's very similar situation that people will go to this. I
Yes.
just legitimately said I'm excited about this one though, but I do think that is a little bit weird that there's an experience like that with the fireworks that you cannot bring the kids at all because it's 21 and over. But that's good. I mean, keep the kids thinking that it's a dry park. It's fine. Then when they get back to the countries,
right.
final thing from our minutes is that May the 4th be with you. That's today, guys. Happy May the 4th. Disney parks rolled out all kinds of stuff for food and merchandise. I know it's crazy to think that they may have actually stumbled upon some merchandise that they wanted to sell. One of the things that they sold, though, and I was kind of mad about this, was at D23 Expo, they came out with the Star Tours playset. It was a Star Speeder 3000. It was the old Rex, Captain Rex one. And then for May the 4th, they released the Star Speeder 1000, which is the current one. And they made it $50 more expensive. I think the older one was $300 and this one was $350. But they released this, and I don't know, it was for pre-order and now it's sold out. So that was a thing that they were selling, and I was torn. I was literally torn. I was like, it's $350 that I don't have, but wouldn't it look nice sitting next to the other one? Wouldn't that be a great thing? And so about an hour or two ago, they still had them for pre-order, and now it's sold out. I'm like, whew, okay, I don't have to worry about that. So that's one thing that happened. And then, obviously they sold some stuff in the stores or in the parks. They had the Studio One, the Muppet Vision, open for May the 4th stuff in the park. But I looked through my feed today at some of the stuff for May the 4th, and a lot of it was specifically for Paris. Paris seemed to be doing a better job than a lot of the other parks with May the 4th stuff. They brought in Mando and Ahsoka and the BDX droids, and so everything that I was looking at in my feed was just a ton of stuff from Paris. So I love this. Like when looking through this, what people did. This story, like right here, which I think is old, about this little girl, and then Rey stops to see her. Like, that's awesome. Obi-Wan Kenobi, come on, boop. I love these things. These are great. Come on, everybody really brought it, and I love this celebration thing. But in the parks, it's become crazy. People were at the Lego store, and the lines were out the door at the Lego store at Springs and at downtown Disney, and they were selling popcorn buckets. Go figure. This one, I always have it close by. I always have it nearby. They finally started selling this one in Florida. They sold the Jawa sippers and that kind of thing. So here's my question, though, is with the Season of the Force and the hard ticketed events that they do at Disneyland, and the fact that they have kind of Star Wars in the parks all the time, and Rob, will go to you on this one first. Is there anything super special about being in the park for May the 4th?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's more about just being around diehard fans, right? It's just like any other fan convention you go to. There's just a sense of camaraderie. Everyone's there because they really love the franchise of Star Wars. And I really want Master Saul's lightsaber. Hopefully it didn't sell very well, so next time I'm down there, it'll still be available. But yeah, I think it's more just about being around the fandom. And it's an exciting place to be. Yeah,
no, that's a great point. Stephanie, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like they're not capitalizing on that when they say they used to do the Star Wars nights. I know we're getting into our main discussion topic here, but
we're getting there.
They're not gonna, make as much money as moolah as they need to if they don't start doing that again. So I agree with Rob.
All right. Well, that's I think the review of the minutes. So we'll close that out and we'll start for new business. And so the new business is going to be something that you may. I worked very hard on this because last week's show, my wife came up with Panic at the Disco. And I loved it, and it was awesome. And we actually got comments, and somebody actually said, "Congrats to Rob's wife for coming up with that." So I was like, "Well, the bar has been set. We need to do something else." So I came up with Star Wars. Come on, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. And so here's the question before you tonight, park adventurers, is again, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, is did Disney hit the target when they did Star Wars in the parks, or did they drop the ball? That's the question before you here. Now let's go back to the beginning, sort of. Before Disney owned Star Wars, which, by the way, I'm such a nerd, and again, to Rob's point earlier, I drink the Kool-Aid, and the day that I heard that Bob Iger and George Lucas were shaking hands and signing this off, I was like, yes, I was excited. Now, there are a whole bunch of people who are like, oh no, why did you do that? And I think we've seen a little bit of like, oh no, from that. We could talk about the movies and the Disney Plus shows and all of the hits and mostly misses that the Disney company has done when it comes to the IP. But having Star Wars in the parks started before that when we had Star Tours. And that, for me as a Star Wars fan, was, Rob, you were talking about community and Star Wars fandom. And that was my first chance to be, in Star Wars, like in the park.
Or
and
if it wasn't a vomit machine, it would be great.
If it what?
Right.
A vomit machine.
If it was a vomit machine, it would be awesome.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
True.
Take some Dramamine and suck it up. So then they started doing they were doing Star Wars weekends, and I loved Star Wars weekends. They were so good because, again, Rob, to your point about the fandom, you were there with like-minded people who were like cosplaying or bounding in Star Wars, and you could meet like the stars of Star Wars there at Disney's MGM Studios, and they had like is it James Arnold Taylor? Like he goes by Jat. Who was the voice of Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars. I went and saw like him do a performance in back in the Streets of America, that theater that used to have Hunchback. And he's like, please welcome the little man with a big voice. And he's like doing his own intro. And then, Ahsoka, Ashley Eckstein was there, and they had the parades and like all the interactions. But the one thing that we had a great time doing was they did a breakfast at the Sci-Fi Dine-In, and it was the Galactic Breakfast. And you walked in, and there was Darth Vader and Boba Fett right there, and you could do a meet with them. And then you go in, and they're playing clips up on the screen of Star Wars cartoons and movies and videos, like music videos and things like that. And they have stormtroopers and Jawas walking around. And the food was like, I remember some weird melon thing that looked like Yoda. And it was like, this is everything. This is so good. Yes. And then at the same time, there was a dinner I didn't get into, which was Mickey and the gang dressed it was at Hollywood and Vine, and Mickey and the gang dressed in their garb from Star Wars. And so did you guys ever go to Star Wars weekends or want to go? Because I feel like we only went once because of the timing of it. I feel like it was first week in June. So Stephanie, I'm going to throw it to you first. Did you ever go or want to go?
No, I mean, I went to the Star Cruiser. That's the only thing that I was able to do.
We're going to talk about
but
that
too. I didn't do the weekends. I really wish I had. I remember watching, videos on this and seeing people report on that, and I absolutely loved it. And you're right, the Sci-Fi Diner, I just feel like that sounds like the most amazing dinner that you could do. Yeah. So dark as it is in there. I don't think that they're, again, capitalizing on something that they really could produce well, and especially at Disneyland, because they do so many after hours events and they do them so well. Why aren't they doing this every weekend prior to May the 4th and just make it a yearly thing? I don't understand that. That really could draw in a lot of people.
Yeah. No, agree. Rob, again, specific to, and I think I saw you say in chat that you went to, what was it, the openings of some of these things?
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't make any Star Wars weekends, but, the Star Wars fan base was so passionate, and there still is a lot of passion there. I lived in San Francisco. I lived in San Francisco at the time. I flew to both Orlando and to Anaheim so that I could be there like within the first few days of opening. And it was, and I'm sure you guys remember the videos. I mean, we all got there at like 5 a.m. to line up. They had special, they had cast members there that were there to entertain us while we were sitting there 3 hours before the parks opened. We were worried about whether the guards would let us in because everyone was getting there so early. There was such a level of excitement. And it was an amazing time. And I will remember both of those trips for the rest of my life because they were just such exciting. And not only that, but I was so excited to be there. I was so excited to live the promise that Disney made around what Galaxy Edge was going to be. And it was very impactful. You walk in, you see the landscaping and you see the X-Wing that you dreamed of flying as a child with Luke Skywalker, or you see, the Millennium Falcon. It really was a pretty exciting thing.
We're going to get more. We're going to get more into Galaxy's Edge in a minute. So hold that theory, hold that thought for 1 second, because I definitely want to hear that. Unless the although had nothing to do with Galaxy's Edge.
No, it definitely has something to do with Galaxy's Edge. So yeah.
Write it down because I know you might forget. Write it down. And so, okay, all right, good. All right, so hang on. I just want to finish this part out first. So here's a picture of some people at that sci-fi breakfast. I don't know them. They don't know me, but I Googled this picture because I was looking through trying to find our pictures because in my entire family, my son and daughter and my wife, we will never forget how amazing that was going there and living that, like, you're talking about living your Star Wars, like, adventure. Like, that was definitely one of those times where we were like, this is amazing. And I would have done the dinner too. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't do the dinner, with the, the Disney characters, because I didn't want there to be anything that would have taken me out of the mindset of like how great that experience was. Here's what the Disney characters looked like over at Hollywood and Vine. Yeah.
So cute.
So yeah. And that would have been neat. But again, I was like, let's not push it. Like, we have that experience and we will never forget that experience. So before we go into Galaxy's Edge, let me pivot and talk about this other company down the road or up the road, Universal, and this thing they have called Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. What they have done with Harry Potter seems to be chef's kiss. Amazing. Like, this is immersion. This is what the fans want. The fans live their adventure. They spend so much money on wands and robes and all these other things. And we knew that this was a thing they were doing because it opened before Star Wars. And we thought to ourselves, wait a minute, this is what we're getting for Star Wars. As Star Wars fans, this is what's coming to Disney. Hold on. This is going to be great. I don't feel like, and Stephanie, again, as we admitted, I drink a lot of Kool-Aid. I don't think that they've misstepped yet with Universal and Harry Potter and delivering for the fans. Do you?
No, I think that they've done an excellent job. And apparently, I mean, you can say better than I, Rob, that, Epic is even taking it a step further. Some are calling it the best ride ever done at a park. So I'm very excited to go see that. I feel like what they were wanting for Galaxy's Edge, they put behind a paywall and they did for the Star Cruiser. And now that the Star Cruiser, and this is talking for someone who went to the Star Cruiser, and I don't regret it. It was a buttload of money, but I don't regret it. I do think that now that the Star Cruiser is closed and it's going whatever, they need to start bringing that back into the park. And that's exactly right. You need to be able to walk around, interact with the characters like you did on the Star Cruiser. You more things that make the land feel alive.
Yeah, I agree. So again, there's too much to talk about, so I'm trying to keep it organized here, Rob. Anything about Universal and Harry Potter before we move on to the next thing?
No, I think they did a lot of the things that were promised at Galaxy's Edge. I mean, you think about like the reputation score, right? That all that levels of interactivity, the games that they had planned, the characters. Those are all things that originally were part of Magic Kingdom, and many of those things that they did with Harry Potter, but just got stripped out and put behind that paywall like somebody was saying.
So we're going to talk about the Star Cruiser in a second, but I want to talk about, so when they announced that they were doing Galaxy's Edge and they were announcing that Star Wars was coming to the parks, first they said, all right, it's coming. We're Disney. It's going to take us a minute. So we're working on it. We're going to do it. But in the meantime, here's Star Wars Launch Bay. Here is Season of the Force. Here is the Star Wars fireworks at Hollywood Studios. So they tried to infuse Star Wars into the parks. And because as soon as they sold or they bought Star Wars, I think the fans, me one of them, wanted there to be Star Wars immediately. Like, oh, let me walk in tomorrow and see like an actual cantina or something like that. So I feel like at that time, and that was before we knew about Force Awakens and that whole trilogy. It was when they first sold it, we were expecting OG, and we'll talk about that when we get to Galaxy's Edge. But they did Star Wars Launch Bay, they did the March of the First Order, and they really kind of tried to Star Wars up Hollywood Studios and Tomorrowland. And so, Stephanie, do you feel like they hit the mark on that? Or do you think that yeah.
No, I was a fan of Launch Bay, and we did both coasts Launch Bay, and we got to meet Boba Fett over, and he said that my husband was not a good bounty hunter or something like that, which I thought was awesome. So yes, and then whenever they did the one over on the East Coast, we got to see BB-8, and the Jawas were still there. You could trade with them. That was something my kids absolutely loved. It was fun. That was something that we definitely had to hit every time we went. And now it's kind of a shell of what its former self.
Well, and you and I talked about with Patrick last week's episode or club meeting, we talked about the fact that the Jawa trading was one of our favorite things to do.
Yes.
Like that was so fun. And then it just kind of went away. It was the same thing. We talk about that as fondly as we talk about that breakfast that we did. And again, these are characters that you know and love that we got to see. We got to meet Chewbacca and we got to meet Darth Vader or Boba Fett or any of those. And so I feel like Star Wars Launch Bay was probably a good thing, but it gave us the thing. And as we get into talking about Galaxy's Edge, it gave us the thing that I feel like maybe we were missing from that. So again, Rob, is there anything about the launch bays that you want to talk about?
Yes. Where was the breakdancing Darth Vader?
That was at Star Wars Weekends.
That's awesome.
But here's another thing. Here's another thing we didn't talk about, like the Jedi Training Academy that went
I was just about to say, can we please talk about that?
For sure.
Yeah. Talk about that, Stephanie. Did you ever take your kids?
100%. Every single time had to sign up for it whenever you had to, when they put it onto the app or onto the website and you could actually select a time. Before that, you had to get into the park. You had to go there first thing, and then you could select from what times were still available because it was so incredibly popular. And I will tell you the very first time my kids ever did it, and that was on the East Coast. We were actually on the West Coast at Disneyland. And when that temple would rise up out of the ground and the Imperial March or the swell of music or whatever is playing, I was crying. I was bawling like a baby. And my son comes out and he gets Darth Vader, and Darth Vader, he smiles at him, and the Jedi helping him says, "That's right, kill him with a smile." It was amazing. And it was the best way, like you're talking about, Rob, to bring in the kids and to get them invested and to be like, that is a core memory that my son has. And he has a picture of it on his wall to this day. And it's something that he will enjoy and remember forever. So yes, I think that is something they desperately need to bring back.
All right, Rob Bazemore, this is for you, buddy.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. And you know what? All those activities, they can't be expensive, right? What's the labor cost? What are they paying those actors $25, $30 an hour to do that? There's no reason that on Saturdays or park period peak times, they can't bring those guys in and recreate that. Because think about, you're hearing from Stephanie what the experience was, and the core memories that something this small and this inexpensive is generating. They should just bring it back. Figure out a way to do it.
Yep. So then here comes Galaxy's Edge, and when Galaxy's Edge opened up, it was not finished. The main attraction, the one that this is the Potter Squasher. This is the one that is going to be the best attraction. It brings in every trick that we've ever learned at Walt Disney Imagineering. to be determined when this opens, right? So when the land opened up, at first, I think a lot of people were worried that it was going to be like you were talking about, Rob, like, were they going to let you in? For how long would you be allowed to go in? You know, and that kind of stuff, which is stuff I've been worried about with Epic, which they've seemed to be handling okay. But they had the whole virtual queue system was born before Tron, before anything else. It was born to manage Galaxy's Edge. That was the reason for it. It was going to be like you get there, you get a virtual queue, they give you a time to come in. If you stay too long, they do a bit with the stormtroopers where they drag you out. And it was one of those things where like it was a problem for like a day at Disneyland. And then I think a lot of people were like, wait a minute. So Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run is open. There's not a bunch of other stuff going on. Maybe we hold off until this Rise of the Resistance thing opens up, which ended up coinciding perfectly with COVID. So, you know, it was it was almost like it was cursed from the beginning. So, I don't know. So, Rob, let's go back to you and talk about your Galaxy's Edge thing, and then we'll go to you, Stephanie. So, again, Galaxy's Edge, when it was delivered, everybody was like, I don't like that it's not old school. That's another thing I want to talk about, but we can start with your thing.
Yeah, so I fully get the reason why they went with the new characters versus the old characters. You know, they do have to think a little longer term, and they probably thought that the sequels will do better than what they did, and people would they had no, I should say, they have no way of knowing that it was going to be so terribly received. So when they built the parks, they built it on the new characters. In terms of the demand and the virtual queues, I think it was needed. It was a requirement. I can imagine what it would have looked like every single day at Hollywood Studios with people trying to get into Rise of the Resistance. If at least probably that first year, even the virtual queue didn't exist, and I think it was a good piece of technology that they put into it. But what I will say is a lot of the promises that they had when they built it, did end up being put behind paywalls. Thinking about early on, they showed the renderings and they described the park experience with characters and droids roaming freely through the parks. And yes, you may see the occasional, Rey or Chewbacca float around, but you don't really see, the level of engagement that was promised when they opened the park. Also, I believe originally there was a sit-down dining experience that was part of it, and it's for me, it's crazy that they chose to go with Olga's, instead of having a sit-down restaurant. And to me, that was just a decision to see how quickly they can move as many people through as possible. But it's crazy to me there's not a sit-down dining experience.
Yeah. So here's the concept art for the sit-down dining experience with the band and the whole deal. So that was one of them. The other thing you were talking about, Rob, the animals and the creatures and the things. Look at Bob Chapek down there promising stuff that never happened. Look at that. Look at him down there. He's like, oh man, you will not believe how great this attraction is going to be. But yeah, that's one of those things where they promised all of these things, and at some point they went, whoa. What if we made this hotel and we put a lot of this cool stuff, the reputation and the and the dining experience and the characters and the interactivity and all that stuff. What if we put that over there and, like you said, behind a paywall? And we did it, and we I did it, and it existed for 18 months. For 18 months, this thing existed, and it was so expensive, and that was the reason that most people said they didn't do it. I think also a lot of people didn't get what it was, but for those of us who actually siphoned off the college fund, which Rob kept threatening to do, and he never did, man, I bet you're wishing you'd done that now. For those of us who cash in the college fund and went, and it was, I could see every dollar as I was there. I was like, they it was the whole, they spared no expense thing. And Stephanie, you also had the experience of going on that.
Yes. So I agree with you. Siphoned off the college fund kind of thing. But again, it was one of those core memories that my kids still to this day talk about and how much they enjoyed the interaction. And I will give that caveat that it was because it was so expensive and we went in December and it was not full. It was maybe 40% full. And we had very individualized interactions with all the characters that I don't think other people necessarily could have gotten when it was at capacity. But I will say this about the opening of Galaxy's Edge. We were there, it was the end of January, like literally right before they shut down with COVID. Okay. So, but it was so cold. We got up at 4:30 in the morning to get to Hollywood Studios to be in line. And the line stretched all the way to back to security, like from the turnstiles back to security. That's how many people there were excited to get in because you had to be in the park in order to get this virtual queue boarding group, as it were. And I think that kind of added to it. And then once you got it at 7 a.m. or what have you, then you were free to roam around the park until your boarding group was called. But I think that they, did a good job with that. That's probably the one and only time I really find boarding groups to be okay if you're actually in the park.
You're talking about Rise of the Resistance boarding group?
Rise of the Resistance, yeah.
That was the most nerve-wracking time of my life when it came to Disney parks, because I remember being in Disneyland or in Disney World, actually was probably the first time, and like hitting the phone and trying to get in and especially if you haven't seen the screen yet, and that was before they had realized you should set your group of people before you go in, and like they were still working stuff out, and they would make the announcement, hey, ladies and gentlemen, the Rise of the Resistance boarding group is about to open, and you're like, where's the best Wi-Fi? Should I not be on Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Should I be on cellular? Like, who's got the fastest phone? Who's got the fastest fingers? Where should we be? That's too much. That is too much. And at that point, I would rather have paid the Lightning Lane had it existed at that point, God forbid. But it was scary to think about trying to get on there. And if you didn't, it's like you're screwed. And if you don't live there and you can't go all the time, this is your one time to be able to do this, for like a whole year. That's a lot of stress and pressure to have, is to try to get that Rise of Resistance.
But you had to be in the park. That's the difference, because now you can just be in your hotel at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. or whatever and hitting that button, and then you never show up, and you just took somebody's spot that actually is in the park.
But here's the other thing that when you were talking about it that I was thinking of, is that you were saying you could go about your day. Sometimes, though, you would get a boarding group, and your boarding group would be for like 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
and at that point, that
true.
park was not a park you could spend 10 hours in.
That's true.
I mean, and it's like, what am I going to do for that amount of time?
Take a nap.
I'm waiting for this to happen. I guess, curl up and take a nap somewhere. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing was kind of a mess. There are plus sides to Galaxy's Edge. I remember taking somebody into Galaxy's Edge and going, they were like, Galaxy's Edge sucks. And I'm like, no, it doesn't suck. I was like, let me go in and show you some of the things that I think are cool about it. Now, some of it was paywall inside the park, Savi's,
right,
or the Droid Factory. Like, if you do both of those, there's $300 shot per person. Savi's was an amazing experience, and I loved it. I was just talking about that with some family yesterday, is like what a cool thing that was. But it was $199 a person at the time. And again, I could see the money, because you got a nice lightsaber hilt, you got a nice lightsaber, you got the experience, you got the pin. A little bit pricey, but it was a really cool experience. But both those were things you had to pay for. But I do think there was like little Easter eggs, like the trash compactor number on the trash cans, and going in and seeing Doc Ondar in there when he's working, or the or the Ronto Roasters. And I love Docking Bay for food, and the little marketplace at Black Spire is really cool. Just wish it had a roof. That was something, it feels like you could have done that pretty easily, but okay. And then it's a neat place to look, and you hear the sounds and see the ships, and Rob, like you were talking about flying the X-Wing. I mean, but you see like the X-Wing over there, and it's making the noises, and there was like, you seldomly see Vi. They wouldn't do any of the new characters because of canon of the time. Which now that's gone because of the Star Cruiser, why not bring more of them in? Because they would drop like Finnick or Boba or all these other characters in Disneyland, and we're just sitting there going, please, can we just have Mando? And then finally they did that. So that I think there were cool things to do and see in that land, but there should have been more than Chewie, Rey, and Vi. and
Yes.
and Kylo and the two stormtroopers. And now that I say that, it's like, oh, well, that sounds like so many, Rob. But when you go into Burke, and I feel like some of our packs said this today, that and I remember specifically, it was William said, Burke is what Galaxy's Edge should have been. When you go into Burke, and we haven't all been, but when you go in, the character interaction, the little animatronics here and there, the moving robots and things like that, is definitely what we were thinking was going to come. So forget whether it was OG or current. We needed more than they gave us, whether it be the restaurant, whether it be another attraction, whatever. So Rob, refute everything.
No, there's something to refute. I think, this is indicative of the history of Disney in general. They have a lot of great Imagineers who come up with some incredible ideas, and then things get budget cut, right? So from what would have been a 10 out of 10 experience, it's now an 8 out of 10 experience. It's still an amazing experience. I mean, Rise of the Resistance is one of the rides I ride every single time I go to any Disney park. I always spend time in Galaxy's Edge, but it doesn't live up to what the promise was or the potential for it. And that's really disappointing to see. Hopefully, Disney, as they're trying to ramp up and be more competitive, maybe we'll start seeing some of these things come back, like the little droids that are walking around. That's kind of really cool. Hopefully we'll see more of those very thoughtful, attention to detail items come into the parks now. They're having to be a bit more competitive.
Yeah. Stephanie, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that they need to have more roaming characters. They need to have the droids. It'd be great if they even had an X-Wing flyover, drone kind of situation. When we did our preview for Galaxy's Edge, they had R2 just out. He was out around the droid depot, and then he was in the droid depot, and the kids could walk up and talk to him. I don't even see him out and about anymore. Maybe he's over at Launch Bay now occasionally, but you don't really see much of him. So they definitely need to have more interaction. And again, I think they need to utilize what they have, because they have a very large fan base. Obviously, there's still people standing in extremely long lines for pins and things today, but they need to, again, capitalize on that and maybe do, like I was saying before, a weekend right before May the 4th every year, and that people can count on and they can plan their trip around.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's talk that there was supposed to be a land speeder building shop that never surfaced. And there was supposed to be, as Rob, as you mentioned, like Oga's was there, but there was also supposed to be a sit-down restaurant as well, so that kind of like a lot of things that Disney does, they would have a lounge and a restaurant connected. And so they did the lounge part, but they never did the restaurant part. And so that seems like it should still exist. And there's a space when you look at it from above that still is available. They could build both of those things in there, but I feel like it needs a larger attraction. I feel like it's got a lot of doors and fake doors that look like they should go to something.
Yes.
So, I feel like that there should be more to Galaxy's Edge than there is. But I honestly, as a Star Wars fan, I can get behind it. I can get excited about it, Rob, like you were talking about. Like, I can still go every time and eat at Docking Bay and walk around. And that view of the Millennium Falcon, every time you walk around the corner and see it, does still take my breath away. I am still in on that. I still love getting on Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Can we talk? We talked about last week how like people hate it when you put your kid in the driver's seat or the pilot's seat and they crash it and it ruins it for everybody else. I've heard people say it's like a bad video game and why would they do this? But I'm hoping that what they're doing to plus it out with the Mandalorian and Grogu is going to make it more of a destination and maybe kind of take some of that pressure off of Rise of the Resistance. But I want to see more here. I want to see more stuff coming to Galaxy's Edge, and I don't know. Like, I wish they would have done a park. I wish they would have done just a whole fifth gate of Star Wars and just like the blessing of size, and just they could, you could have it divided up by time periods, or this is the the Old Republic, and this is like the Skywalker saga, and this. I mean, just divide it all up. It would be really neat. Rob, you look like you want to say something before I move on.
Yeah, is there an expansion pad behind Rise? I mean, behind Galaxy's Edge. Is there space to expand?
Yeah, it's called the Star Cruiser.
Well, on the other side.
No, but I mean, if you want to look at it, and apparently Google Maps has not updated since they were still under construction. But like, here's the Star Cruiser over here. That's what this area became, the Star Cruiser, and then you've got all this parking. You could do a Universal thing or a Disneyland thing and make a parking deck and take advantage of this area in here and do all the expansion you want.
So
That
I think
is a
that's
thing that could happen.
I think that's cast member parking, Rob, and that's also where they're going to be putting the Monsters coaster. Not the entire thing, obviously, but that's part of it they're taking.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. My bad. All
But
right,
they
well, then
probably,
never
like you
mind.
said, they probably could take some more of that, and especially if they built a parking structure.
Well, but again, okay, so I'm too close here, but here's Grand Avenue up here. So like, theoretically, you could do the Monsters coaster here and still have
Exactly.
expansion down here to do
Right.
Galaxy's Edge. I mean, that Monster
Right.
coaster isn't going to take, but maybe this green building all the way back. I think this is
Yep.
where that would be. But yeah, so that's. I mean, there's a possibility they could do something and put it in there, but Hollywood Studios in particular is landlocked with roads.
Well,
Whereas,
here's the thing. They have the Star Cruiser and they have those silly trucks, right? You could pay for your party to get into one of those trucks and they take you over and you watch a dinner show, on the Star Cruiser and walk around the lobby and the atrium and everything like that right there. And you still don't have to go upstairs. You don't have to go into all of their offices, but you could use that little area and maybe even the what am I trying to say? Where you can play the game. What was that called? Oh, the bridge. You could utilize the bridge as well.
Oh.
And that would be something that people could definitely upcharge for, and people would pay for that. I feel like don't make it as expensive as the 2-night stay was. Don't make it thousands of dollars, but a couple of $100 per person, I think, and for a couple of hours, I think definitely people would be interested in that.
Or go to the bar or play cards. What's that card
Yes.
game? I forget.
Yes,
But
exactly.
yeah, Sabak is the card game you're
Sabak.
talking about. So we asked the other pack members. So we have our Discord, and I'll tell you about that a little bit, our Patreon in a minute. But in our pack Discord, I asked the question today, the same thing: did Disney drop the ball with Star Wars in the parks? And William said Isle of Berk is what I was mentioning earlier, is what Galaxy's Edge should have been. So yes, they dropped the ball and they went cheap. I feel like Berk. I'm in Berk as I walk around, and at Galaxy's Edge, I feel like I'm at Disneyland.
Wow.
So there's that.
Says it all.
Yeah, Captain Quacker says there are a few flashes of cool things that they obviously spent time with on Galaxy's Edge, and I would say Doc Ondar's is probably one of those things. When you look around the top of Doc Ondar's, it feels like it's actually a den of antiquities. The top of the docking bay with the crates with the years of the original shows or Savis. I agree that that's a thing. The in-app games where you scan the luggage and find the radio towers are fun, but I think that sort of is in stasis now. The game was cool for a short bit, but it became repetitive and obviously had no long-term meaning. The droids you buy have an aversion to their programmed enemies, but now people notice they're really driving their droids through the... but how many people are really driving their droids through the land? But yeah, I mean, there should have been droids walking around. We saw a concept of that they put in Tomorrowland with the little girl, that video of the little girl just climbing all over that droid, and they went, well, I guess we can't do that. I mean, there are a lot of those things that we were promised that we see in Burke. Those 3 dragons that they have over in Burke are amazing. The meet and greet that you can do with Toothless is great. The animatronics over on the sides are awesome. The characters that come around and just sneak up behind you and talk to you, or Gobber over at the... I mean, it's over, like, it's great. So this was interesting. The cast members seem less interested in role play too. At least they have lately. When it first opened up, there was like Till the Spires and your cargo slip and all that. Do you think they still do that, Stephanie?
It's few and far between. The last time we were there, I don't hear as much of, bright suns and, that kind of greeting whenever you walk through. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I look at what Universal's doing, Is it fair to compare? I think it is, with not only their Harry Potter properties, but also these new properties and how ingrained they are with everything. So I feel like we can hold Disney to a higher standard here. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy Galaxy's Edge, but I feel like there's so much opportunity that was missed personally. But we're going to get to a final ruling as a club on that in a minute. But I want to say a big thank you. But before we go any further, you good with that, Stephanie? Are you good with we've moved on to final business? Rob, you good with that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you guys for being here, for finding us on the Park Adventurers Club channel. We have a lot of programming that we are trying to put out for you guys, so hopefully you get a chance to come back. But here's a sneak peek of what we've got coming up. So last Friday, we did our first Happiest Stage show, and that's Shannon has decided she's going to deep dive each and every resort on Disney property and give you her opinions on it. So if you haven't already, go back and watch our episode of the Happiest Stays Yacht Club, and that will be a monthly series that we will be bringing to you. And then tonight is the Park Adventurers Club. Wednesday night, we do a show called A Look on the Plus Side, which is our movie Disney Plus review show. Rob Bazemore is going to be on this week. So I had TBD on here, but Rob has agreed to do Black Widow because he's fresh off of his trip to Thunderbolts, and he has promised not to spoil Thunderbolts for us. But we're going to talk about Black Widow, and if anybody hasn't already seen Thunderbolts, it'll be a good foray into that. So do your homework and watch Black Widow, and we'll talk about that Wednesday night at 9 p.m. live. And then Friday, our good friend Annie is coming on, and she and I are going to do a new show called Rank It, where we are going to rank and tier every Epic Universe attraction live. We've both experienced them, and we're going to go in and argue that out and decide what's S, A, B, C, D, or F. So please join us Friday night for that, and then we'll be back next Sunday night at 8:30 again for another Park Adventurers Club. We are there's a lot of ways you can help out the channel right now. If one is subscribe. Two is watch the content that we've got. We've got a ton of content for you. We drop stuff daily, and we're doing shows on Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. Please come, enjoy, be in the chat, hang out with us. We also have our PAC, the PAC, the Park Adventures Club. We love the PAC. Thank you guys so much for being PAC members. We appreciate it. If you would like to learn more about the PAC, you go to patreon.com/GoPACPAC. And we want to thank all of our members of the PAC, but especially to Jungle Cruiser, Rosita, William, Monica, Michael, Alicia, Vince, Jordan, and Sienna for being such big supporters of the Park Adventurers Club. Thank you guys so much for doing that. Also, you can follow us on social at Park ADV Club. Sounds like AV, but it's ADV because X said no thank you. You can't make it that long. So it's Park ADV Club. Any social media, you can find us there. But thank you guys for being with us tonight. Really appreciate it. But now we have to rule on tonight's question. So I'm going to start with Stephanie, so Rob can cheat off her paper and see how this works. Although he's taken copious notes there, I know he's got some hot takes for us. So Stephanie, the question before us is: when it comes to Star Wars, did Disney hit the target, or did they drop the ball? That's the question, and yes. I need to know how you judge.
So Disney, unlike Merida, they hit the target, but they did not hit the bullseye. Because to me, I think they should have hit both coasts a different experience. I think Batuu is fine. It's great to have, the more recent movies, elevated and kind of, made center stage. But people really do love the original characters. And if they had turned Disneyland into Endor or one of the other planets, that would have been a completely different experience. And you could have still used the same ride system. Harry Potter Forbidden Journey is the same ride system as the Monsters new ride over at Epic. So they could have used the same ride system, just put different screens, different characters into the one over at different coasts, so that you can get into your ship and you can fly across country at light speed, and you can go back in time and you can see both the newer characters and the older characters. So that's what I would say. I'd say they hit the target but not the bullseye.
This is the second time where I feel like, Stephanie, you missed your calling in not working for Imagineering. If you guys go back to our first meeting, which is, does Disney need a fifth gate?
They do.
Man, Stephanie was like, I need to do this as a visual. She was like, let me tell you all the stuff I wrote up about this. And she just like, she nailed it on the whole thing. So, I mean, again, Stephanie, you're making too much sense. I think I've thought that before too, is they didn't need to make a clone of it. I remember Bob Iger's speech at D23. He says, we're not just making one of these, we're making two. And I was thinking, why? Exactly.
Yes.
Why? Because I miss Mr. Toad out in Florida, but guess what? It exists in California. And we have Cars Land, but you know, we can do something like Monsters in the East Coast and all that stuff. So I don't know. Rob, you get your say though. You're shaking your head, man. What
Yeah.
how vote ye?
I'm shaking my head on that one particular point because we live in unrealistic circumstances, and that we always get the opportunities to go to both parks. We also probably go to international parks. But you know what? The overwhelming majority, 99% of people who go to Disney parks will only go to one park. So I think it's important that you put your best experience forward and have your best experiences available to the overwhelming majority of your population, who again will only see one park ever. Again, we see things we have a very shaded view of what it's like to visit Disney parks. In terms of whether they hit the mark or missed it, I would agree with Stephanie. This is a scenario in which they definitely hit the mark, but not the bullseye. But the good news is there's still opportunity. They thought about a lot of things that we want at design of the park. And there is an opportunity for them to go back and add in some of those whimsical pieces that they omitted because of budget cuts. So I think, again, this is an opportunity where they came very close. Maybe they came 85% there, but there is still the opportunity for them to go back and add that 15% as they're trying to be more competitive with Epic Universe.
Well, you got a big fan in the chat about Neko has said, thank you, Rob, for saying that about the two parks, because it's really one of those things where you're right. I am looking at this as I get to go to both, and you're right. Absolutely. There should be, but I think that experience for Star Wars could have been, to Stephanie's point, a little bit more, it could have been a little bit more localized. I feel like, especially for Star Wars, because I feel like in that universe, there is multiple places you can go in those universes. And to your point about like ride systems, you could do the same ride system on both coasts. Everybody has that experience, but should you get a chance to go to both, now you can see a different point of view or something slightly different. So I do like that Pirates is different in Florida from the one in California, but I like that Pirates exists in both places. That's a great point, Rob. So, and again, kudos to you, and both of you guys nailed it tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of the Park Adventurers Club. We appreciate you guys so much, and thank you guys so much for being in the chat. We've been watching the chat roll tonight, and Care Bear and Rosita and Dawn and Ronald and Jayware and Fire Chief, and I may have already said Rosita, but let's just say her twice. And Mandy, for sure, for participating, for hanging out, for talking to us. We appreciate you guys so much for being part. And again, tune in for more content. Come see us on Wednesday night when Rob and I are talking about Black Widow. You think you like his hot takes now? Wait till he just buries me on Wednesday night with all of his hot takes about Black Widow and all of the money she should have made. And I can't even wait to see where you go with all of that stuff, man. You're the best. Stephanie, thank you so much. Everybody, have a great week. And don't forget, adventure is out there. Go get it. Take care.